I don't think I'm going to say anything new, and I'd like to draw on a couple of things that have been said as well, and particularly Jeremy's last presentation. Qualifications are important, but I'm glad, as Jeremy said, really, they're not everything in the system. And I want to talk about what I see are the 4 pillars that will really ensure that we're successful in this country. And we are successful. I go to lots of overseas countries that look to us to help them develop their own vocational education system. So we are seen as having success in this area, but we want to improve, don't we? So for me, the 4 pillars are really important, because if we get these right, all aligned as a foundation, all the same height and all the same weighting, we've got a better chance of success. So there's no one pillar, I think, that counts more than any of the others. And the first pillar, I would say, is qualifications. That's the industry I'm in, along with learning in an education company. So we look to support learning as well. But yes, we develop qualifications, and we develop world-class qualifications that will be nationally and internationally recognised. High-quality vocational qualifications, a key component in any vocational system. But they're not the whole answer. The best they can do is really offer up-to-date, relevant and demanding content and meet the needs of employers and higher education, because they are a progression route. As Jeremy said, they're not the end point, they're the starting point for many young people, or for adults, it's recognition of what they've achieved along their career journey. So qualifications open doors for the very young, they offer progression, and they offer them a career pathway. But more importantly, I really do believe we need to examine this tension between local, as I was talking to Ian earlier, for those that you're in the room, to national. Because national recognised qualifications do offer mobility to those employed. And we have a very dynamic business sector. We don't always stay in the same career, let alone the same company for life, as we all know. So being able to have portability in a national qualification, I think, is really important. And I hope we retain that with some of the changes in the future, that there's a core nationally recognised on that ladder. The second pillar, I think, is excellence in delivery. Best in class, I think, that we do have in many areas of this country, particularly in post-16. We have teachers that are dual professionals. They have mastered their own skills in their first career, be that in manufacturing or service industries. And then they've gone into teaching at a later date. And they've become that dual professional. They've mastered their skills and their teaching. So what's the benefits of that? Young people get the relevance when they're in colleges or in schools for their own skill development. But to make sure that that is relevant, CPD is so important for our teachers. It is so easy when you're very busy to put your own development last in the queue. And that really is important to keep up, because we know industries change, technologies change, and therefore what we teach today is not what we're going to teach even within 6 months. And also, I think now more and more nowadays is to harness technology. So not to be a slave to technology, because it is a buzzword in many areas, but really understand the power of using technology to measure student progress, to improve their learning experience, and to be able to accredit their qualifications. So it's about making best use of technologies for the good of the learner and to get that impact. My third pillar, and you'll all recognise this one, is employer engagement. We've talked a lot about that this morning. So it's not just about employers engaged in creating qualifications. It's not just about articulating demand. Ed Miliband touched on this morning. It's really important for employers and businesses to get involved in supporting this agenda and support during the delivery of qualifications. And if you're not an apprentice, and as Frank said earlier, you're in perhaps full-time vocational education, how do we get more businesses to spend time helping us with that excellence in delivery? How do we get more businesses taking on young people to undertake project work? More importantly, in the community, how do we get businesses to offer the CPD opportunities for teachers? So that continued engagement, I think, is really, really what we need. And my last pillar is creating a space for learning. This is not just about buildings, and we've some wonderful buildings with wonderful technologies. And it's not just about equipment, and it's not just about the teaching resource. More and more, and Ian touched on this morning about incentives in the learner journey, more and more it's about giving learners time to learn. And the feedback I'm getting more and more of in my role is about this time is getting constantly squeezed. So I couldn't tell you, many of you could, perhaps the average teaching time for a student, a level 3 student on a full-time vocational course in different sectors, it will vary. And it will vary because their programme of learning will vary. But when I first went into teaching, I was given for my tutor group 25 hours a week to deliver everything that I needed to deliver. I think if we looked at the time we have now to deliver, it's far less than that. And technology can't make up all of that difference. So it's great to be more efficient, it's great to be more effective. But we do need to make sure that there's enough time in the day to actually deliver excellence. So I don't think I said anything that hasn't been said in one form or another this morning. And I know many of you in the room, and I'm sure you'll recognise most of what I've said. So the challenge is, I've been in education for a very long time, and I'd like to think perhaps when we come back in 3 years, we are not talking about this because we've solved some of it. And my challenge is, how are we going to tackle some of these things that are still in the system and build on the best? Because we've got a great foundation, but I'd like to think before I retire, I can tick some of these things off. Thank you very much.